Week 3 NFL Inside Blitz with Ron and Ted from Sports USA Live. How are you guys doing today?
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Always good to talk football on a Friday. Very, very busy weekend ahead.
Yeah, some good matchups too. And on Sports USA, we got a couple of good ones. At least 3 of the 4 teams are good right now. New Orleans at Green Bay is our morning game, and then the Bears at the Chiefs, and we'll get to that a little later on. But right now, something about the Saints, guys. A 2-0 start to them. I don't trust their head coach. Who knows with their transition into the Derek Carr era? But they have one hell of a defense that is just totally dominating right now and really, really impressive.
I'm impressed by him. I think that they have a great shot this weekend. I like them in a teaser leg more than I like them straight up, but I think they can win straight up. They have a great history of success on road on back-to-back games, and I think that they will be okay this week. What do you think, Ron?
I don't know.
Okay. We love how
it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Give me a reason why there will be an upset.
What's an upset?
Yeah, what is it? 1.5 Green Bay right now, or something like that?
No, I was impressed with Dennis Allen last week. I mentioned this on Tuesday. Inserting Taysom Hill at various times really showed more creativity than I had seen from Green Bay in the past. I mean, with New Orleans in the past in this game. Still, when I look at it, they've only scored 36 points. So I don't know what to make of that. I mean, it wasn't exactly that they went up against tremendous talent there. I like Derek Carr. We know he exhibits leadership ability there. We're going to hear from Tony Jones. He scored 2 TDs. He's going to have company in the backfield this week by somebody I'm very interested in to see how he does in his first NFL stint. But I have questions on both sides, both Green Bay and New Orleans.
Well, the Saints are a work in progress on offense. I mean, there's so many different factors, and they're doing it all. Remember, without their best running back, who's his suspension runs out this week. It's the last one, so Kamara will be back next week, which will help. But they are just not in sync yet with Derek Carr. It's literally that simple. It looks like they're going to take at least a few more games because they have a pretty damn good receivers core with Olave. Now, you remember that they had that one great one-handed catch last week, and he's just fitting in beautifully. And Mike Thomas is healthy again, so that helps. But they're not in sync yet. So we'll see. Eventually, that's got to be better. And as far as using Taysom Hill, I wouldn't exactly call Dennis Allen Vince Lombardi for doing that. He almost had to do that, in my mind. I mean, that's what Taysom Hill brings. And the injury to Jamal Williams, if you don't use Taysom Hill that way, I think you're not too bright, to be honest with you.
But it took a lot of guts to insert him with 2 minutes and change left in the game as the quarterback to run out the clock. And I hadn't seen that. I hadn't seen that from that team. Too early to talk metrics because we've only had 2 weeks. Chris and I don't turn them over. But right. Chris, what do you say? Anything pointing the first 2 weeks that has you interested in what the metrics say?
In this game, no. I've got the Saints slightly favored in both of my models. Yeah. You know what? I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think the one thing. When was the last time the Saints gave up more than 20 points? Don't they have a pretty long string of games where they've given up fewer than 20 points?
Yes, they do, and that's a team record. It's very impressive stuff. With the Packers, we still don't know unless you heard differently in the last half hour, which I didn't see, about Aaron Jones and Christian Watson again, both with hammies. Both I might play this week, but I don't know.
I think we'll see Aaron Jones probably in a very strict timeshare capacity. Yeah. I would say it's trending toward no Christian Watson, but we'll find that out later. Impressions of Jordan Love from the two of you, because he's 29 of 52, which is not to the liking of where he needs to be. NFL quarterbacks really need to be above the 60% line. But he has thrown 6 touchdowns with no interceptions, if I read that correctly.
That is correct.
Yards per completion, really nice. I'm concerned about his percentage, like you guys said, about the Saints and the Saints defense. So if he keeps out of harm's way, is this going to be a close to the best game? Is this going to be one of those where in the fourth quarter it's going to be really tight?
Well, he doesn't have 2 key guys, I think, to really help that cause. You like to have your top receiver, probably not going to be there. You'd like to have Aaron Jones be able to run as much as possible, set everything up. And how many, if he plays, how many carries is he going to have? The other guy, A.J. Dillon's not that kind of a guy. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. He's going to have to do a little bit more on his own. There's it's their home opener, which is going to be really interesting. But one of the things about Jordan Love that, remember last week, played a cut from Aaron Jones, or it was 2 weeks ago, from Aaron Jones saying this guy is just cool and calm. Nothing bothers him. So this is going to be a really great test and example of that, to see if he can come out, not make mistakes, and take care of biz.
Well, we've had some pretty good luck. Whoever you've been interviewing has been seeing some good luck on the playing field afterwards. So,
Sports USA karma.
That's right.
It's been working.
Tony Jones is coming off a 2-touchdown game for his first 2 touchdowns, right? Yep. So, how can he do better? So, give us the background on this one.
Yeah, well, Tony Jones has been mostly a practice squad guy as of late, and they just signed him again to move him up onto the roster. They need him because of injuries and because of Kamara's suspension. The one thing that Dennis Allen talked about with Jones and Derek Carr talked about and stressed big time, Tony was huge in blocking for the blitz package. Every time they blitzed, he was the last guy to save Derek Carr's ass. And they loved what he did there. So, and he talked about, he mentioned it too, when I said, how important your runs were. And he goes, yeah, and my blocking too, or my, making sure that protect the quarterback. So interesting story out of Notre Dame. I love these guys that unheralded, undrafted, but they find Oasis 4th team in 3 years and 2nd time with the Saints, but he found the end zone twice. That's pretty good stuff. You want to hear from him now?
Yep, let's go.
Okay, go for it. Ted in Los Angeles, how are you?
Good, and you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on the pregame show.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. Well, Tony, 4th NFL season, your 3rd team, and not only do you score your first TD, but you get 2 Monday night. What was going on in your heart and mind going from the practice squad to the end zone twice?
I would just have to say that it shows that I have resiliency. I mean, life isn't going to be roses and daisies. And, me personally, I had to go the long route, and I'm blessed for it. And, I thank God that I can really strive through all that and still score a touchdown and help the team win, or make a block. It don't matter, because all of this is a blessing.
That's great. I always go by whatever it takes in life. And isn't this a perfect example of that?
Oh, yeah, definitely is that, man. Man, there's been so many sacrifices I had to make to get to this point, and, man, those are still coming with it.
You just keep it going, man. And we're looking at the offense this week. Jamal Williams is hurt. Kamara returns from suspension next week. So give us an idea how you guys might have a little extra creativity in Green Bay, Taysom Hill, and your own touches.
Coach wants the backs to step up for our leaders that's not there, Yep. And it's going to be me, Taysom, me, Kendrick. It don't matter who out there. We just got to put on for the guys that's not out there.
Do you expect Taysom to be all over the place? Mr. Whatever it takes, he's a great example of that.
Oh, yeah. Taysom's going to be somewhere on the field. Just know that.
Tell us something about Derek Carr in the huddle and in practice that maybe we don't know.
He's a great leader. He's not like a guy that's going to talk down on you. He's going to help you through your lows and help you through your highs too. and they're gonna have faith in you if you in that huddle.
That's great. We're with Saints running back Tony Jones Jr. You guys are 2-0. Carr said you really haven't played that well yet. How do you see this start to the season?
Me personally, I think that our team is just really starting to get to their form now, and like these first 2 weeks, we're gonna have some kinks. We trying to work some things out. So I mean, like Derek is right. Like we haven't played our best ball yet. It's soon to come.
How good, though, or great is your defense? It now had 10 straight games allowing 20 points or less. That's the longest in team history. That's really a fantastic run.
Oh, yeah. To be honest, our background on the team is our defense. When our defense play good, then, I mean, like, the offense going to play good to some sort, you know what I mean? And me personally, I think, like, our defense is the reason why, like, the team's been playing good lately.
So what do you see on film getting ready to face the Packers D on a short week?
You know, Coach says it best. We just got to stick to our roots and, you know, can't try to do stuff that's out of our framework. You know, we just got to stick to our process and stick to the scheme.
First time at Lambeau Field for you?
Second,
okay. So you've been there before. You know that place is going to be a giant party for their home opener.
Oh, yeah, definitely going to be rocking, and I can't wait to see it.
All right, man. I appreciate the time very much. Congrats on your start. And, hey, this is an important week for you. Keep this thing going. Who knows, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Tony, Ted in Los Angeles, how are you?
You know, he's trying to save his job is basically what this week is about for him.
Yeah,
and Ron,
no
what do you remember at all about Tony Jones at Notre Dame? I was curious about that.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was going to be discussing that. He worked hard for his yards at Notre Dame. He was in kind of a similar offense where they tried to establish the run and then hit Claypool and others for longer gains and stuff like that. Notre Dame was really based on running and defense, playing in the elements and stuff like that. And I think the Saints under Dennis Allen tries to do the same thing. Let the defense dictate play. Take your shots because now you have Derek Carr, who has developed a great rapport with his top three wide receivers. They have a lot of catches, 35 in 2 games. But still, the preference, especially off a short week. Remember, the Saints played Monday night. They're going on the road. They have a day and a half less preparation. I'm not sure I trust Dennis Allen to open up the game book, the game plan with a day and a half less preparation. Tony Jones, by the way, we're rooting for him because of the karma of the show, but he was 12 for 34. So that's still fewer than 3 yards per carry. I'm really interested to see what the rookie brings, Miller from TCU. He demonstrated what I like is strong yards per carry. He's been banged up. He's had hamstring. This is probably going to be his first game action, so I don't know how full go he is. But I think it's going to be a timeshare running back for the Saints.
Yeah, and this is a great opportunity for both of these guys to do something before Kamara shows up again because, again, they are literally fighting for their jobs and playing time right now.
Yeah. What do you got, Chris?
Oh, well, I'm looking at blank screen. So at this point, I do not have the ability to look at comments and change banners or anything. So
okay, well, that's wonderful.
You guys are going to have to read any comments that you guys can see.
Well,
and
we never look better, right? Is that correct?
I can see you guys, and the rest is blank. So.
Okay. Well, then you can read my mind too, because it's blank. By the way, we do have a Jaden Reed comment talking about Jordan Love and what he brings to the table from an emotional standpoint. You got that there, Chris?
I cannot retrieve
Can't play it? Okay. Well, anyway, he talked a little similar to what Aaron Jones said a couple of weeks ago about how cool he is, how nothing really affects him at all. I mean,
I think I can try. Let me try this.
Okay.
Me being here, it just seemed like he's been here before. You know, I just get that feel from him. Like his confidence level is at an all-time high. You know, he never get too high, never get too low, and just, you know, he helped everybody believe in each other. For me being here, it just seemed like he's been here before. You know, I just get that feel from him. Like his confidence level is at an all-time high. You know, he never get too high, never get too low, and just, you know, he helped everybody believe in each other. For me being here, it just seemed like he's been here before.
Anyway,
you know,
that's it. You can cut him off.
Okay.
It was something about and the other also Christian Watson had talked about him as well. So they like the way he's handling his leadership ability, which it was totally as an unknown, really. I mean, especially at this level. And he's taken over the team. It's his team now, and that's a very positive sign.
Yeah, this is going to add more data points to that first 4 weeks that I need in order to trust my 2023 data, because this is a tough defense for Jordan Love, a guy who came into the league, looked like he was going to be throwing interceptions left, right, and center based on his Utah State days, sat, learned, has thrown no interceptions whatsoever. He's been really careful with the ball. They're being conservative with him in a way, but it's just going to be really interesting to see what happens. He's still learning his wide receivers, I think, even though he's been there. The receivers haven't been there, but for a minute, they're first and second year guys. And Luke Musgrave, who's the tight end that they're really high on, 5 catches on the year for 75 yards. Tough test against this kind of defense, because this defense tends to shut down tight ends. Yeah. I don't have a play on the game. I have a lean because of the short week to Green Bay.
Yeah, I'd like to know who's healthy, to me, which side I was going to go on. And you also had New Orleans safety Marcus May is out. He got suspended. One of the things about Jordan Love that we talked about a couple of weeks ago is also using some of that Aaron Rodgers arm angle stuff that I don't think he had before. And he talked about that as well this week, where he says, hey, he's not quite Patrick Mahomes, where he's throwing major sidearm and underhand all over the place. But he was asked about that this week. And he said, I have confidence in any arm angle. And you can't say that about a lot of guys. You know, they won't even bring it up, but I think the media is bringing it up to him because he's showing he can do it. So this kid's coming along, a major test against this New Orleans D this week.
I still have a blank screen, guys. So
all right, you're good.
The only thing that I have, I'm leaning toward a Saints teaser leg, and that's about it. I'm not sure where we're gonna get back into the teaser range on that.
So you get over a touchdown is what you're doing there, right? Okay.
So I'm completely blank on the screen. I can't see anything. The next game we have, I know that was the Bears in Kansas City, which we're all, enthusiastically impatient to start, right?
Well, did we think when Sports USA picked this game before the season started that it was still going to be a 12-game losing streak for the Bears? I mean, there was some hope, not on my end, but there was some hope that the Bears were going to start to turn things around, be a little bit more impressive, that Justin Fields would get over some of his whatever he's dealing with. And now he put his foot in his mouth this week and used the word coach as an excuse for some of their play. And then he took it back. And you know what? I don't have a major problem with what he said. I don't think he was ripping the coaches. I think it was just his deep feeling like, hey, I got 18 coaches talking to me and I'm trying to figure this thing out. So he's still, to me, he's a kid who's being bombarded by the Chicago media. He said one thing and they're all over it, and it's a little unfair. But bottom line to me is he better play better, or this is going to be a disastrous year. What do you think, Ron?
Fields, I just didn't like that interview that he had where he was talking about the coaches, talking about the style of play. He's not taking ownership. I get the feeling he wants to play on his terms still. And in the NFL, you've got to take what the defenses give you. There's been a few defenses around the league. I noticed what Bill Belichick is doing, for example, where they're trying to take away the quarterback run. It's gotten out of hand the last 2-3 years, the way quarterbacks have been able to run on opposing defenses. And so far this year, it's a 2-week trend. I'm just starting to notice it. Quarterbacks aren't running with as much effectiveness if you've got tape on them right away. Maybe a Richardson as a rookie for Indianapolis is getting away with some stuff. But if they take away that from Justin Fields, what is Justin Fields? And he has to shore up his game.
Well, how much of this can be blamed, for lack of a better term, on the O-line there, which stinks right now. He's been sacked 10 times again in 2 games. He has no time to think, let alone to do anything, the expectations of him. And now he's got this thing in his head where I better not run because I'm running too much. So what do you do? I mean, he's in a tough spot. It's almost like everybody's pulling him from every direction and they're not letting him be him. So, what would you do if you were him?
Well, he's getting these sacks when he's 5 seconds deep into the play. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
I don't know how they don't have any choice other than to let him run and have some designed runs, especially this week.
Yeah, you got to roll the pocket out for him, and so at least there's a threat of a run. If there's a threat of a run, one defender has to pay attention to him. If he's in the pocket, no defenders have to pay attention to him. So you have to. There's a comment from Taylor in the chat. I'll relay it since, Chris, you don't have the screen. Play calling has been awful for the Bears, and I don't think any of us are going to disagree with that. I mean, They've got to find out what he can do well and instill confidence in him because it's lacking right now.
Well, it's not the first or the last time I'm going to mention a defensive head coach who is making 0 adjustments offensively. This is how many hundreds of times have we talked about it over the last few years? Eberflus has done nothing different with Justin Fields. And in a way, he's right. It is the coaching. Not that you should say that. And again, he's a young guy. It came out. I think it came out wrong. It's not the way, if you watched it, if you listen to it's one thing. I watched it. He didn't seem like he was ripping the coaches. It just came out something he probably should have never said. Bottom of the line is they're not good. And their defense, Mr. Eberflus, they're not good either. Okay. And your GM's not getting you the right guys either. Bad organization right now.
So, Chris, what your numbers tell you about Chicago? You got anything good to say about them?
I don't have any good. My numbers actually, even after 2 weeks, came out right on the number. I have 12 on both models, and I'm looking at 12 and a half. I took a higher number, and I'm just doing it just on data history. The situation that the Bears are in after 2 games, there's just, so many great data systems to follow. And I hate the pick so much. So it probably wins because I hate the pick so much. Kansas City doesn't blow out anybody at home anymore. They don't play for margin. They're still trying to integrate the rookies properly. And just a lot of this, a lot of that. That's a lot of points. So I'm living or dying by previous data history this week on that for two small plays, first half and full game.
Yeah, but the good news, Chris, is that your Lions get to play the Bears twice this year, so that's always a help in the win total department.
Well, I wish they had played in one of these first 2 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, but
from Kansas City's standpoint, they've allowed just 1 sack. Chicago's played fairly well against the run. Here's the problem. They're going to try to, because they played well against the run and Kansas City is not a great running team, they're going to force Mahomes to pass. And that's a bad thing for Chicago's defense because it's Mahomes, regardless of the fact that some of his guys have yet to run the routes that Mahomes really likes. They're going to have Kelsey back for the 2nd straight week. You're going to see some really good hookups there. And Matt Nagy is the offensive caller.
Speaking of hookups, he's been hooking up with Taylor Swift. So maybe his mind isn't on the football.
Travis Kelce.
That's what Bertie says in the chat.
So,
right. He wants me to come up with some inside info on that. I got nothing. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. But can you make anything? Nagy probably wants it to be personal. Andy Reid could probably care less. And Chris, you and I have been making money fading Kansas City at high lines because they're just not covering. They have Mahomes, so they find a way to win games, but they haven't turned on the Jets. You're right. They haven't crushed anybody. On paper, they should crush this team if they want to, if they care, if their mindset is in it.
Yeah, but they have some too many unknown factors from a receiver standpoint that they're still trying to figure that out too. You know, they got the drop passes and the this and the that, and the first 2 weeks offensively, they're just average at best, and they might be that way for a while. They're only worried more about December than they are right now. But I have a brain cramp. I can't remember, where was Eberflus before the Bears again? He was the
I
defensive
want to
coordinator?
say he was with Indy. I'm not 100%
Okay,
sure.
I
On the
think
defensive side of the ball, that allowed 70% passing.
yes, but he also had one great game against Patrick Mahomes, which was a big difference in his career. I think that made him, and that put him on the map for a possible head coaching job because it's because it was a nationally televised game. Outside of that, he better show a hell of a lot more than he's been showing on a defensive standpoint in this game against Mahomes.
Yeah, there could be some house cleaning, but we're ahead of the game there. As Vinny said in the chat, Chicago also has just one sack.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing. Mahomes is going to have quite a clean pocket. And Chicago has a 110 sack ratio. So there's going to be some loose Kansas City pass rushers unless they find a way to get Fields out in space. Wide receiver Mooney, no catches last week. He's better than that. They have to get him into the game plan.
Oh, and by the way, the Bears defensive coordinator, Alan Williams, resigned this week. How does that come into play? Right? I mean, good luck,
It can't
guys.
get any worse.
I mean, what are they doing over there? So anyway, it looks so bad, but take the 12.5 and hope.
I think we blew out a tire on this game already.
One more thing, because there's a nice note from Stan. Can you read that, Ted? Cris can comment on this one.
When Kansas City holds the opponent to less than 20 points, the total has hit 32 of the last 36 games. Heard this stat on another pod. Thoughts on the under on this game, guys?
Cris.
I have some on the under 48. I'm a little nervous because now it's getting bet up a little bit because it did fall to 47. In this situation, it's usually a good underplay. I'm not a totals guy, but I do have a position on the under.
I don't have a major opinion on this at all. I wouldn't touch it because the back door could be open if Kansas City's up by 3 touchdowns and they give up a late touchdown.
Yep.
So I think it's too scary for me with variance.
Yeah, I think this. Go ahead.
I've got a question for you guys, and this is a serious thing. The Bungles, Monday night. Is there something really wrong with this team? I think there's something really wrong with this team. I think it's more than a Burrow injury problem. What do you guys think?
Well, I think Burrow's the key. I mean, the fact that their offense has been really below average, and he hasn't been able to let it go is a big problem. Defensively, they're not quite doing what they need to do. But I mean, it's Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback in this league. Top 3 in my mind if he's healthy and himself, and they're just nothing special, and their O-line is not as good as it should be right now with the changes they've made. So it's a little bit of a few things, but they've started 0-2 I think 3 or 4 times under this coaching regime, so we'll see.
I saw some video this week that just showed the players just standing around. I mean, it was embarrassing. It just, and while I can't trust my metrics are showing that this is more than just a quarterback problem. This is a team-wide issue of things that they're doing poorly. And I'm not so sure this is just a Burrow issue. So the game interests me from that front because at this point, I'm kind of regretting, I think, maybe not taking the 3 that was there since it moved down a little while ago to 2.5.
Yeah. Well,
for Cincinnati, they haven't shown up against the run, but it was Chubb in Cleveland and it was Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards. I expect that their coordinator is going to get them playing defensively. And we have talked about this before. When a backup quarterback is inserted into the lineup, it's usually the defense that starts holding their own to keep games closer that particular way. If you're worried about the offense, I mean, there's still Chase there. There's still Higgins there. There's still Boyd there. Mixon has to step up. Yep. I honestly can't believe they didn't draft a better running back behind Mixon, because I think his yards per carry has been slowly but surely dropping down. I can't see Mixon being there beyond this year. And so if you're going to be one-dimensional, that's going to be a problem. And their offensive line is hit and miss right now. So, and obviously Burrow's the key, and he's not 100%, and we don't clearly know whether he's going or not going.
Right.
But yeah, there are some issues. You can't start 0-2 every year and then just turn on the switch.
And what are the totals in that game, by the way?
43.5.
Because to me, that looks like a really low scoring game. I think you got Cincinnati playing the defense. The Rams don't have much of a run game. And all you do is triple team Puka Nacua and you're in good shape.
Yeah, no opinion on the total from me.
No. What do you guys think about Denver? It's do or die this week. It has to be. What happens after this week?
Well, we know nothing's going to happen to the head coach at $20 million a year. Do or die. How the hell are they going to beat Miami in Florida? I just don't see it.
There's so many situations that favor Denver in this game. The only thing that favors Miami is the fact that it's personal for Vic Fangio and the defense, and it's relatively recent that is firing. Now, Vic Fangio was not a good head coach. Let's get that out. But he is a good defensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah.
And the team has 7 sacks. Doesn't sound like much in 2 games. It's not something that we can build upon yet because it's just a 2-game sample size, but they're probably salivating going against that offensive line and the internal clock of Russell Wilson. And for me, Miami doesn't usually excel in terms of defensive pass rush. And if they get that together, it just makes them a more complete team. Denver is a definite lean because the situations are really good in this game. So I would respectfully disagree. I do think they have a win shot, but the karma on that team is kind of strange. I think Sean Payton is 1 loss away from blowing this thing up and concentrating on 2024.
Yeah, which might be this week.
Yeah, well, that's what I was meaning. I mean, if they go to 0-3, you blow the whole thing up, basically, I would think.
Well, again, blow it up now. There's not a lot of things you could do now, but you do have to establish what you do well with whatever personnel you have. And that's something they haven't done yet. And that's going to take time. And they may I haven't looked their schedule, but they could be off to a 2-5 start or something like that. And then you just give up on the year. But at the same time, you have to establish what you do well. So at least you have something to plan for the future. You can't blow it all up.
I'm not going to be shocked if Denver wins. I'm on the record on that one.
I will.
And I think Ron feels the same way. What do you think?
I feel exactly the same way. This is a situation. It's a good setup situation for them. And that matters in the NFL. You just can't phone it in all the time.
No.
And there are a number of reasons why this is a soft situation.
I just like what Miami is doing, though, overall, that the fact that from both sides of the ball, they've been showing really great strengths.
Yeah, well, we'll see, because they may be one-dimensional in this game. I can't predict that they're going to be effective running the ball in this particular situation.
Yeah, we also don't know Jalen Waddle's situation yet either.
And that's huge. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's concussion protocol.
That completely changes the coverage on Tyreek Hill.
Exactly.
It frees somebody else to help a very good cornerback, Patrick Surtain, in the coverage. It's a game changer if Waddle doesn't go.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact.
Yeah, it's concussion protocol, so who knows, right? We still got a few days. Yeah. Anything could happen.
Questions for you guys. I had a couple. Okay. I know Cris can't put them up on the screen. So I'm going to go on record as saying I think it's a value play to take the NFC in the Super Bowl right now. And the reason I say that is because Dallas and San Francisco, to me, are right now 1-2 in the NFL. Everybody in the AFC, and I want you guys to comment on this, everybody in the AFC is going to brutalize each other. We knew that from the start.
Yep.
Kansas City's 6-game stretch at the end of the year is completely unfair from a scheduling standpoint. And if they're not the number 1 seed, I think they're dead. Baltimore plays Pittsburgh at the end of the year. I would hate to have either team enter the playoffs after playing each other in such a physical game. The only team I personally could trust to do damage in the AFC right now would be Buffalo. But I think Dallas, and if things go the way they're going, Dallas and San Francisco will have playoff spots clinched by Thanksgiving. And then they could, they can play load management. They can do all the things necessary for the AFC or for the NFC. You guys' thoughts on taking the NFC right now in the Super Bowl?
Okay, my thoughts on Dallas, first of all, they have beaten absolutely nobody yet. Okay, so I think they're getting a little bit inflated by everyone, even though they have looked great. Their offense is real average. If you look,
I disagree.
They haven't found the end zone much. How many times have they found the end zone? They haven't had to score.
Yeah.
Their defense has been unbelievable against 2 bad offenses. So I don't think now they lose Trayvon Diggs on D for the season, which is a big loss. It's not Micah Parsons' big loss, but it's big. And so I think they're going to be very, very good for the long haul. But I also think their division is they're going to get a little beat up too. They're going to, playing Philly twice, and Washington should be better than what we thought. Forget the 2-0 record. They battle hard for Rivera. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are some automatic. I want to see them over the long haul against some quality teams. They're 2-0 against bad teams thus far. And San Francisco, Ron and I both picked them to go to the Super Bowl in our first show. So they're just spectacular with Mr. Relevant. They're spectacular.
I agree with you, Ron. I think that those are the 2 best teams, and I think by quite a bit, frankly. I would have confidence in either of those 2 teams over, even Kansas City at this point, because they're still sputtering. But 2 games, we don't know crap yet. And,
it's early. We're obviously injuries will play a role. But everybody's talked up the AFC, and I think you have a stat, Chris, on what's the record AFC versus NFC after 2 weeks.
It's either 6-0 or 7-0.
Yeah, it's very one-sided. I think the top of the NFC is very worthy. Now, I've got another question for both of you, and I'm going to phrase it differently for each one of you.
Okay.
Because we've talked a lot about coaching. There's chatter in our comments about when does Staley get fired, for example.
Never, because they're too cheap, but go ahead.
But that's for another day. But, Chris runs the model. I run various metrics and so on, but we talk about coaches all the time. So for Chris, does your model or should your model factor in coaching at all when you're analyzing these games? Do you care if Bill Belichick has 2 weeks to prepare, or if you have a low opinion on Staley? Is that too much subjectivity? Does the model, and the model may spit out just objective stuff, but where does the soft stuff come into play when you analyze a game?
It's not too often that it's going to, put me on a play or put me off a play, frankly. It'll affect my confidence level, but I pretty much follow what the model indicates, because I just think that that's far more important. Obviously, with these big coaching mismatches and read off a bye and, similar sorts of situations, you have to weigh that, and maybe you'll attack you'll bet it more with more latitude instead of having confidence in a straight bet. Maybe it's a game you want to have that teaser or money line advantage some way somehow. So, yeah, you'd be surprised at how little I value it, but I am usually aware of it.
Before I get to Ted's question, I want one follow-up there. For me, it has no effect if the head coach is a dog. But if they're a favorite and I have to trust them to win the game, I do have that in my subconscious. Any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But still, it's the same thing. It's if you've got that. I'm trying to think here. Can't really think of an example here.
Well, I have one word for my own quick thought on this. I think it's totally situational. If you got Belichick against Staley, and you got 2 weeks to prepare, I'm all over one side, and I don't have to tell you which one. If you talk about adjustments, I'm all over one side. But it depends who you're facing, what the circumstances are, that kind of stuff. You got Belichick's won 14 straight against the Jets. What's Saleh going to do this week to deal with that?
Well, that leads good right into the question I have for you, because you've got this built-in information about Reed 2 weeks, Belichick 2 weeks, and all that. From a media standpoint, do you think the media is guilty of overreacting and automatically dismissing teams like, with the Staley, or overemphasizing the Belichick point of view? And for you personally, do you have to fight any inherent bias? Meaning,
no.
For me, because it's the players play the game, how much does coaching really matter once the players are actually there, other than the game plan part,
right,
and stuff like that? How do you, the media just seems, it knows all this stuff and it drives it so much in one direction.
Okay. First of all, I could do 2 hours on the word media. Okay.
Yeah.
Because people use the term media as if it's like one guy who's always the same. Mr. Media or Mrs. Media. Everybody's different in the media. I've worked with guys for 30 years that I trusted like crazy, and some that I can't believe they have a credential. And I'm not kidding. It's like, how the hell has this person ever been given a credential? They ask the dumbest questions and they don't belong in the room. So the media is like every country is different. So it's impossible. I don't call them the media. Okay. But yes, in general, overreaction is not week one. It's every week for the media. Okay. They overreact to everything. Some because they want to do a story, others because they think it's the right thing to say. And again, there's 20,000 different angles on all of it. My personal thing is I don't let the coaching affect me. Of course, I'm not in the commentary business, except for what we do here. When I'm on the air, I'm talking facts. I don't mention, hey, I think Staley's going to blow this game, that kind of stuff. I'm giving stats, like, hey, they lead by 3 at halftime and Justin Herbert's got 2 touchdown passes. I'm not saying, and at halftime, wait till Staley screws this up. I don't talk like that because that's not my job. Right. So it really depends. But again, situational is very, very important. It depends on the game, on the matchup, so many different factors.
I look at Twitter comments and stuff while I'm watching some of these games, and you see, I don't know, not non-professionals say, fire this coach now. Did you see what he just did and whatever, overreaction. But the one story I remember, I don't know if you remember, Ted, but one of the old San Diego Charger coaches had the ball with like 23 seconds left and no timeouts and stuff like that at his own 1 yard line. They ran a play and were hit for a safety instead of kneeling down. To me, that is a fireable offense at halftime, but we have to deal with some of this. What are the coaches thinking? For example, if you're at your own 25-yard line with 30 seconds to go and you haven't put up a point on the board, what makes you think you should be passing all over the field with 25 seconds to go if you haven't moved the ball?
Right. So again, it's really easy for somebody in their basement to be tweeting all day long, whatever's on their mind. Nobody cares. It means nothing. It's like, whatever. Tell that to the coach to his face at the end of the game. I dare you to get a credential and ask them that same question. Talk is cheap, baby. What can I tell you? Bottom line to me is it depends on situation so much. And you mentioned a perfect situation, the different whatever's going on at the end of a game or at the end of a half. I want to see coaches. I think halftime adjustments are slightly overrated depending on the coach, because you really only have about 5 or 6 minutes to do something at halftime. You can't sit there and write a whole new script, right? So how many coaches totally do something? And you probably have great examples, Ron, for halftime adjustments. Who are the great halftime adjustment coaches in the NFL per se?
Maybe it was the Giant coach last week when they were down 20-0 to Arizona and 60-0 for the whole season.
No, he made no adjustment. All he did was say, "We're playing Arizona," and everything was fine.
Cris, what are your thoughts on this or other topics? We have a comment in the chat saying, "Okay, let's hear some bets."
One comment I wanted to make is this Indianapolis-Baltimore game is getting pretty ugly. Like nobody's playing. Richardson's out, and half of Baltimore's out. That 8.5 is starting to look like a lot of points. You have any thoughts on that one? I think I might be involved in Indianapolis.
Okay, their offensive lineman, center or guard Kelly is also out in that game too. Minshew's going to throw a lot of 5 to 7 yard passes and complete a lot. I expect Minshew to have about an 80% completion mark in this game. Ted, you mentioned as far as bets are concerned, you mentioned New England and the Jets and 14 in a row for Belichick. What are the Jets going to do? They got Zach Wilson and so on and so on. This is a buy low situation. When the line was 3 and it's still threatening to gain 3, one of my plays this week will be on the Jets, because I think you have the slightly better defense. You have the better running attack. And I think something's missing with New England in terms of finishing games. Now, the strategy has been there. New England could have been 1-1, maybe even 2-0. But he doesn't have the roster. He doesn't have Tom Brady to bail them out. So one of my plays will be the Jets at +3.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Shouldn't this game just be total pick'em? I mean,
on
why
my numbers?
Why are the
my
Patriots
numbers? It
favored?
is. I have the game pick'em on my power ratings.
Yeah,
by the
I mean, what makes the Patriots a favorite at 0-2? Because of winning 14 in a row, which it's the, by the way, my favorite stat of the week is only 2 current Patriots have ever lost to the Jets. I think that's an incredible stat.
That is
one of them's Matthew Slater, who's been there for 100 years now. But isn't that a great stat?
Chris, where did you set the number? What are your thoughts on that game, or what other play do you want to give to the audience?
I have the Jets 1.67 and 2.13. So again, it's a little early, and it's probably a fair number. It probably is a fair number when you think about the Patriots have had 2 home games, the Jets have had to travel, and they've played 2 tougher teams, but in my opinion. So I think New England, unfortunately, I think both of these teams are better than what they've looked. I think it's a teaser game for sure with the Jets at this point. I'd rather have that than the 3, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think New England is going to be a little susceptible to the run. Could be wrong. Breece Hall, I'd mentioned on Tuesday, had 4 carries last week. That's not going to happen this week.
Yeah, is he still dealing with a knee thing? I keep seeing him mentioned as he's not practicing. Is that just maintenance, or is there an issue there?
I think they're easing him into this thing. They want Breeze and Cook to carry an equal share of the load. Cook's been slow to get going with his new team, and it's also not a great offensive line, so they have to open up a little bit better holes. But Breeze ran almost 10 yards a carry, I think, week 1, but they still want him on a pitch count. It's a long season. But this is an important game. It's a divisional game. As Cris mentioned the other day, Jets win this, they're 2-0 in the division.
Yeah, and the one game that I like the dog I think it's slightly inflated, but I mean, you're the odds guys. You tell me. Don't you think Buffalo's a little high at Washington?
Oh, I do. I think Washington's a much more well-rounded team than people realize coming into the season. I had seriously considered taking season wins over, but their schedule is just it's rough. And Ron and I talked about it early on. We were worried about the quarterback play, and he's doing fine. He's doing great. He seems to be comfortable, mobile. He's not doing anything dumb.
Right.
And he's got a lot of support if they can just stay healthy. Logan's going to be out, though.
Sounds like the Buffalo quarterback not doing anything dumb.
Well, they're going to have a problem in the weather because it's supposed to be
really?
shoddy weather.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, not perfect weather.
How important is Logan to Washington, Ron?
The tight end position takes a drop, and in this case, I think there is some importance because you've heard me chat all the time about how young quarterbacks need a tight end because they present a bigger target. So there is going to be some drop. I like Washington's wide receivers. We've talked about them, McLaren, Dotson, and so on. They're good. They're going to have to manufacture plays for Curtis Samuel, which they will. But they will miss that 3rd and 5 throw to Logan Thomas because that's part of what rookie quarterbacks rely on 3rd down situations. I need a bigger target. I need somebody to run a stop and go and move the chains. So there will be some. I would take that into account.
Chris, the weather is actually supposed to be okay. So
it is okay.
Yeah.
I didn't heard that. So
well, I heard a show. I was listening to something this morning. They were talking that it was supposed to be, crappy weather.
No, I haven't heard anything about weather this weekend yet.
Well, actually, it's a slight chance of rain showers, 12-mile-an-hour winds.
That's nothing.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be a factor. The
Let's
other game, real quick, the
finished.
other game that I'm curious about your thoughts, guys. If the Chargers lose at Minnesota this week and go 0-3, okay, they're not going to fire their coach. They're too cheap. But what do you think happens here? I mean, we're going to start seeing a little bit of maybe a revolt in the locker room, or I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Nothing. I think nothing of it. Justin Herbert is a quiet, unassuming leader who will compartmentalize these things. I see no change. Chris?
Okay.
It's one of those situations where it just seems like the mistake would probably be to blow things up and fire somebody.
They're not going to blow things.
Panic.
They got a great roster,
but
there's no reason to blow things up.
But if I was a Chargers fan or if I was part of the organization, I would want to do something because it's absurd that either of those two teams are starting off 0-3, and it's not going to be as rough on the Vikings if they go 0-3 because they've got the turnover situation. Everything's kind of morphing with them, but the Chargers are underachieving unquestionably. So
again,
that's the issue.
Yeah,
I want to handle. I want to handle a couple questions that we had in the chat. Thoughts from you guys on Carolina? What's without Young? Is there any adjustment that you would make because Young's not in the game and what is it? Dalton's in the game instead?
Yeah, Dalton. Yep.
Yeah, I bet Carolina at 7.
Yeah, I think Dalton has a chance to see the field better against Seattle. It's situational for me in answer to that question. There are certain situations that I would like Young better than Dalton in. In this situation, I probably like Dalton better than Young. So I would agree with Chris.
Are we also talking about going against Pete Carroll's D? Dalton can handle that better.
Pete Carroll's D is very young. Pete Carroll's offense is very young, so not developed yet. Yeah. Pushback in the chat, by the way, a couple people have New England -2.5. So,
okay.
There's two sides to every game, so that's what's great.
Yep.
Well, if we didn't have people on both sides, we wouldn't have anybody to bet with.
That's true.
The sports books are supposed to be the middlemen, in theory.
It's a great point there, Chris.
Robert said it best in the chat. Chargers are going to waste Herbert's best years. I cannot disagree with that.
Yeah,
Well-
well, maybe the Rams can pick him up after 8 and go to the Super Bowl with him.
Well, I can't go that far yet, because if they have a bad year and then they fire Staley, I mean, he's a young guy still. It's not like his best years are all, he's got 1 year left. He's got a giant window open. So I can't go that far. That's that's overreaction Friday to me.
What do we got next week?
What do we have next week? We got, I forgot.
I will tell you.
Yeah, it's your job
Mr.
to say
Sports
that.
USA.
Hey, I'm worried about this week.
Miami at Buffalo, which is a
Yes.
dynamite game. Can't wait to
Absolutely.
talk about that one. And speaking of the Chargers,
Yes.
Raiders and
Yes.
Chargers next week. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that particular
Oh,
show.
absolutely. And I'm wondering who my guests are going to be. I have no idea. It's a weekend away, but and you guys have any recommendations who I should get besides the quarterback?
I'd like to hear from, believe it or not, from Tre'Davious White of Buffalo, the defensive back. He's coming off injury. I'd really like to. I have a ton of questions I would ask somebody like that as an important member of their defensive secondary. That would really stand out for me. And based on the Chargers' performance this week, I'll have a couple names of who I might be interested in. Chris,
What you need to do is make some connections with like the food service department and see what they're going to be eating and who's responsible for the ingredients and stuff, and then and try to make a connection. So maybe
So they could send it here for freebies?
a little bit of a upset stomach issue would be nice. We need advantages like that.
yeah,
I'm
we need
getting
behind the
nauseous just
scenes
thinking
stuff.
of it. Well, I'll do my best to get some good guests for you. We didn't have, just so the people know, we were going to have Romeo Dobbs from the Packers today, but he could only call in today, and my producer has Friday off. So otherwise, if he could have called in, I would have had him, which would have been nice, but maybe next time. And I think the main reason I didn't get Jordan Love is because it's a homecoming week for them. Their home opener. So he had too many responsibilities. So I might get him this year, hopefully.
Closing thoughts.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to shut this down. I can't see anything. I just hope where I'm clicking will do it. So
You can't wait to get rid of us.
I've been blind this entire time. So thanks for everybody joining us. And we'll be back on Tuesday, Ron and I, and the three of us next Friday.
Week 3, baby. Let's have some fun.